Five, four, three, two, one.
I'm from a place where the girls are always looking pretty. You might have heard of us, we call it Shy City. We build champions here who define gritty. We don't do excuses, we don't do pity. Rose is coming back stronger, that's a guarantee. Cutler's coming back too, he's beastly. Throwing it to Marshall, the title's ours easily. Blackhawks are winning titles, trophy looking massive. Don't forget about the Cubs, Sox, Crosstown Classic. With so much greatness, we gotta show bravado. You got your boys Ambro and Mike Mercado.
Hello everybody and welcome into this week's edition of the Chicago Beat. I am Mike Mercado. I am the host, moderator, and conductor of this crazy train. Of course, we have secret producer man across from me. We're in the beautiful ICB Lombard location in our brand new studios, in our brand new man cave. We got a lot to get into this week. The Blackhawks dominated the Phoenix Coyotes. The Bulls getting dominated by Denver. Trade talks among the Bulls. And of course, we hadn't seen you since Sunday. There was a certain, Super Bowl played. Ravens beating the San Francisco 49ers, making me look bad since I picked San Francisco to win. But nonetheless, a very good game, 34-31. But I want to get started on the Fighting Illini, beating the number one ranked Indiana Hoosiers. You know, if you listen to the Chicago Beat for any amount of time, you know I really don't like college sports. Not that I don't like it. I don't like what goes behind the scenes of college sports. But a huge win. The biggest thing I took off from this is there's no great team this year in college basketball. There's a lot of parity. And if you ask me, especially since we're getting into March, I think there's going to be an upset win. So nonetheless, congratulations, University of Illinois beating the Indiana Hoosiers in Champaign, being able to storm the court. We got so much to do tonight. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter. We're at mmercado2333. We're on Facebook /MikeMercado2333, YouTube /MikeMercado2333, and the brand new The Chicago Beat website. We got so much for you today, only on The Chicago Beat.
You're listening to WICB with Mike Mercado.
A city that has diehards who know when their teams are bad and know when their teams are good. And yet every single day they go to the stadium.
And that's the beat.
So last night, the Chicago Bulls lose to Denver Nuggets 96-128. But the big news out of that game was the trade talks that the Bulls had started preliminary talks, whatever that means. I mean, these teams like to throw terms like that. But they showed interest with the Toronto Raptors for Andre Bargnani, another Italian stallion, to go with Marco Bellinelli. This brought up a lot of debate because the talk was Carlos Boozer for Bargnani. And me and secret producer man got into it about, is this a smart trade? This isn't a marquee trade, first of all, if this trade is real. It really doesn't, especially in the NBA where there's so many trade rumors, and how many times you actually see trades go through in the National Basketball Association. But the reason why I believe, in my opinion, this is a good trade for the Bulls is two reasons. Andre Bargnani has 2 years, about $22 million left. He cannot be amnestied. That is an issue. Carlos Boozer makes $5 million more per year, and he has 3 years left on his contract. You're talking about a 27-year-old 7-footer who could hit threes. If you look at the Bulls' numbers, they're among the league's worst at shooting three-pointers. And the other factor to bring in about this trade is when Derrick Rose comes back. I'm not going to get into a discussion right now about if D Rose is going to come back at 85, 75, 95. I'm not going to get into all that. What we've seen when Carlos Boozer and Derrick Rose are on the court together is Derrick Rose takes touches away from Carlos Boozer. Carlos Boozer needs the offense to be run through him. That does not happen when Rose has the ball and when he's healthy. So you're asking Boozer to have the type of season he's having now, especially since he's been injured, to keep that going, opposed to having somebody who can hit an open shot when Rose attacks the rim. Now, I've had people on Twitter, of course, you can follow the show at mmercado2333, telling me Rose needs to change his game. He needs to become a jump shooter. He needs to stop protecting the rim, especially after an injury. You don't change what's got him there. The man was an MVP at 22 years old. So you can't just tell him to change his game. He's going to have new aspects towards the game, but it's not a change. So it becomes more of a money grab when it comes to this trade then. This trade isn't going to put you over in any sense of the imagination. We're not talking about a marquee player. We're talking about a first pick, quote unquote, bust. He has been a bust for the number one overall pick. But you're exchanging 2 years for 3 years, a younger, bigger man who doesn't play defense. It's not like you're getting defense from Carlos Boozer to begin with. Now, I'm not a Carlos Boozer basher. I actually think Carlos Boozer has always been a good player. I think people in Chicago expected one thing because they didn't stay up and watch Utah Jazz games when they were on TV. Then again, how many times are Utah Jazz on TV? But that's besides the point. He also played with Darren Williams, who is not like Derrick Rose, who is not a slasher, who is not going to attack the rim. So last night, the Bulls lose by over 20 points. You're seeing the bench play all of the fourth quarter. That's not the story. The story is, what are the Bulls going to do in April and in May, and if possible in June? Because we've seen regular seasons with the Chicago Bulls. Does it really matter? It doesn't matter. Tell me the last time the Bulls, as a number 1 seed, won the finals since this team has been together. They've done it twice already. One time they lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. Next year you lose Rose and Noah, and you get out of the first round. Standings don't mean anything in the playoffs. It's a half-court game. It's a defensive game, and it's if you can put the ball in the net. Bulls can't do that right now. Bulls struggle to put the ball in the net. And if they're not playing defense like they did last night in Denver, you're not going to win any games. Mind you, the Bulls are hurt right now. They are not healthy. If you watched Joakim last night, I think it was 5 rebounds, 2 points. He's not right. He's not. I mean, he has a plantar fasciitis. I mean, that's a hard injury. We've seen with Paul Gasol, he's out 4 to 6 weeks, more like 8 weeks, because it's a complete tear. So I think it's very reasonable for the Bulls to make this, at least explore this option. But I'm telling you right now, keep in mind that in the NBA, there's a lot of smoke that's always thrown. We always hear about trades. They never happen. This isn't Major League Baseball where guys get traded midway through the season. It's very rare in the National Basketball Association. Not as much as in the NFL, but it's still rare to see big-name trades. Personally, though, I think it's a very unique trade. I think it's a very interesting, a very smart trade, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to be a popular trade. I don't think a lot of people are going to be behind it. And Sick Producer Man has sit here and told me he doesn't believe people want this trade. People are with Boozer, but don't you want to trade high? How much more is Boozer going to be worth? That's all I'm saying. How much more is Boozer going to be worth? The Bulls have a game tonight against Utah. It's a back-to-back from Denver. They're going to play the Jazz tonight at 9:30 Central. We're not too sure who's going to be in it. Kirk is still in Chicago from what I've heard. Marco's a game-time decision. So the Bulls are not at full strength right now. They're not. But I think they're going to win tonight. I think they're going to win tonight. They rested a lot of their players in the second half because of being blown out. So 9:30, Bulls, Utah. Coming up next on the Chicago Beat, an ass whooping, a butt kicking, a domination that only the Chicago Blackhawks rightfully gave to the Phoenix Coyotes. That's next on the Chicago Beat.
Live from WICB Radio.
Inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
This is
It's a goal. The Stanley Cup to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Chicago's Beat.
So last night, I put on the TV, right? I'm expecting a pretty tough physical game between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Phoenix Coyotes. Instead, what I get is a complete domination by the best team in the National Hockey League right now in the Chicago Blackhawks, beating Phoenix 6-2. And not only beating Coyotes 6-2, you get your hands on Raffi Torres. The big conversation was, what are the Blackhawks going to do to retaliate? I've always been under the impression that they should have retaliated in the playoffs when it happened. Make it stand for something. They did not waste any time against Raffi Torres coming back from the suspension. And not only did they finally get their hands on him and got some nice fists into his face, they scored 4 goals in the first period. And not only did they score four goals in the first period, but how dominating is Patrick Kane right now? We've already kind of got a little used to the fact that the Blackhawks are going to win a lot of games this season if they stay healthy. I want to talk about Patrick Kane, though. Right now, I think he is the league MVP. I think Patrick Kane has taken another step into his maturation into a great hockey player. You're seeing that he's always at the right place at the right time. That he's always one step ahead of whoever's guarding him. And he's always the first man on the rink to get to the puck when it's on his side. He just looks determined. He looks like this offseason, he took his craft seriously. And he realized, I could do something special in the city. This team, in my opinion, accidentally won the Stanley Cup in 2010. They were young. They were blue collar, though, and they just won the right amount of games. You had big bodies like Bufflin staying there and in front of the net, and that's what this team has been missing. But you're seeing now that they're finally getting back to that physical play. But they're so it's crazy. You can't keep up with these guys, and they're young. They're young. You got guys like Shaw and Ladd and all these guys who are in their 20s, Kane and Taves, and you just go off the list. This team is going to be here for a while, and if they stay healthy, I think right now they have to be your favorite to win the Stanley Cup. How can't they be? And how can Patrick Kane be your favorite right now to win the MVP? I think it's a foregone conclusion right now that the Blackhawks will make the playoffs. The one thing that I caution people about this Blackhawks team and the league in general is we've seen last year an 8th seed in the LA Kings. If you get a goalie that stands on his head for 1 month, you can win the whole damn thing. And my question to all you Blackhawk fans, and you can reach out at us, you can reach us at daChicagobeat.yolasite.com, Twitter at mmercado2333, is Corey Crawford good enough to get you through the playoffs and win you a Stanley Cup? I think he is. I think this team right now is going on all gears. And if they stay healthy, I'm telling you right now, you could book it. February 8th, 2013, the Pittsburgh Penguins will take on the Chicago Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup Finals. And I think the MVP of that series is going to be Patrick Kane. I just think that's what it's all working down to. I may be wrong. We all know I'm not the biggest hockey fan in the world. I'm since about 08-09, after the Blackhawks lost in the conference finals to the Detroit Red Wings, I've really immersed myself in this team. It's awesome right now. I bet you the players don't think it's awesome. It's great to be able to go on the TV, and almost every other night, you're able to find a game. But coming up for the Blackhawks on February 10th, a date with the Nashville Predators. Now that is going to be a physical, heated game. And they've gone through murderer's rows just the last 2 games with San Jose and Phoenix. And they're dominating. 5-3 over the San Jose Sharks, over their goalkeeper who helped them win a Stanley Cup. Then you beat Smith and the Coyotes 6-2 after beating up on Rafi Torres, beating up on that team. Now you're going to Nashville. I think the Blackhawks are due for a regulation loss. I don't think it comes to Nashville, though. I don't. I think come February 10th in Nashville, they're going to win. And I think Taves is going to score a goal. I think Patrick Sharp is due for a goal after having 3 assists last night. But let me just tell you Chicago Blackhawk fans right now, enjoy the ride. Because we all know in the NHL it could change like that. But there's something special in the Madhouse of Madison right now for the team with the Indian head on their sweater. Coming up next, Super Bowl 47. Turned out to be one of the more memorable Super Bowls in recent history. That's up next on the Chicago Beat.
Fade away. Make me step back and kiss myself. MVP time. Windy City Assassin does it again.
Live from WICB Radio.
Inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
This is
It's a goal. The Stanley Cup to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Chicago's Beat.
So a lot of you guys, especially Sticker Producer Man, the jerk across the side from me, really rubbed it in my face that San Francisco lost to the Baltimore Ravens at Super Bowl 47, the Power Outage Bowl, the Harbaugh Bowl, the Kaepernick Bowl, whatever you want to call it. Super Bowl 47 ended up being a very unique game. San Francisco was getting blown out until a power outage after halftime. A lot of people want to say that that's what gave San Francisco the chance to come back and get back in the game. I don't buy all of that. I think what happened in that case was San Francisco finally took a moment to realize that they're in the game. And we all know in sports, the hardest thing to keep is a big lead. A big lead is the hardest thing to keep in any sport, because all of a sudden the opponent doesn't have as much pressure on them, because they're not the ones that have to keep this lead. You are. And that's what happened with Baltimore. But Baltimore continued to answer. San Francisco just so happened to finally show up. And we saw in the first half the inexperience of a Kaepernick and a Jim Harbaugh and some of these guys, that they have never been there before. And maybe it was just too bright at that given moment. They showed up and ended up being one hell of a game. I thought the whole Super Bowl experience was very interesting. I think the fact that people think New Orleans shouldn't host them is a joke. New Orleans is one of the better hosting places of a Super Bowl. Next year, you're going to New York. I think that's going to be great. Cold weather or not, people don't care. The amount of actual fans who go to the Super Bowl, I would say it's 50-50. 50% of it is actual fans, 50% is more for the experience. It doesn't matter. You're going to New York City, New Jersey for the stadium. But But all in all, I thought it was a very good Super Bowl that I lost a lot of money. We wrap up shop next here on the Chicago Beat.
Listening to WICB with Mike Mercado.
A city that has diehards who know when their teams are bad and know when their teams are good. And yet every single day they go to the stadium.
And that's the beat.
Some of the things that these people come up with here in our beautiful Lombard studios when we're talking about the Rooney Rule and all of these, crazy things that happen in sports, PEDs, and I just find it funny that when you find a group of sports fans who know how to handle sports the right way, it's great conversation. I think that's the point that we try doing here on the Chicago Beat, is we just try having light about things. It's just having conversation. It doesn't really matter facts, statistics. That's right. If you want all that, you go to ESPN, watch Around the Horn, watch PTI. We're just having discussions here. And I'm getting crap for it right now because I don't like throwing out stats. Stats are deceiving. Stats are so deceiving in sports to me. For example, the plus and minus in sports. What about when you have a big lead and you just give up a fluky goal or a fluky run or a fluky basket? I mean, stats to me are so overrated. It's not fantasy sports. This is what we see when we look at our eyes. Now, if you want to talk about fantasy football and baseball, I'm all ears. You can follow us at mmercado2333. You could get on the website and tell us. I'll talk about fantasy sports all day. But if you're talking about what we see on a daily basis, stats have nothing to do with it. For example, Joakim Noah. He's not a stat stuffer. He's not. But he's a difference maker, isn't he? And you saw that last night when they lost to Denver. So I'm fairly enjoying right now what we're doing here on the Chicago Beat. I'm blessed to be able to talk about sports and so many other things. Before we get out of here, I just want to remind you guys, Secret Producer Man and myself have worked very hard to give you another outlet, to give you another interaction, to have one of your own talk about and live about sports, who love it, who breathe it. And if you want to support a local, quote-unquote, artist, please follow the show. We're at @mmercado2333. And now our new website that Secret Producer Man has worked very hard to get up. It's the daChicagobeat.yola, Y-O-L-A, site.com. Whatever you guys want to talk about, whatever suggestions, whatever you guys want to do. The Chicago Beat is not Mike Mercado's show. Like I said, I am just a conductor on the crazy train. This is your show. This is where you could tell me what you want to talk about, what you think is really going on in the world of sports. And that's a beautiful thing. This isn't politics. This isn't about gun control. This isn't about gay marriage. This isn't about immigration. This is about sports, and it's something lighthearted. And it's something we don't take too seriously. We take our job seriously. We don't take us seriously. And then that's what's so great about the show, is that it's just a bunch of guys. It's just me. It's just women, kids, talking about what we love, and that's sports. So for everybody who listens, please, thank you so much for being on this crazy train. I am your moderator. I am your conductor. For Secret Producer Man, I'm Mike Mercado, always here on the Chicago Beat. See you next week, guys.